DeSanto Propane is 4 generations strong as a trustworthy family-owned business with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSantoPropane.com for more info or call toll-free at 1-800-752-4574. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane.
All right, everybody, welcome into Fresh Takes with Russo and Felice. Paul Russo here, Nick Felice as well. Nick, good to see you as always. Memorial Day weekend in the rearview mirror. Got what I said it to you just like a second ago, right? It's like a lot of just like smaller little bits and pieces to kind of get to today.
Yeah, it's almost the summer hours for us.
Yeah.
Getting there, I think, probably once the finals are done.
Yeah. So about a month, right?
You know, both
Give or take-ish.
Got about 5 more series to complete.
Yeah.
Memorial Day was good. Sorry about your boy Kyle Larson not being able to even compete in the double.
He ain't my boy.
But that would have been cool.
Yeah, we're actually going to touch on that, and there's a lot to kind of. That's what I mean by a bunch of smaller pieces. There's a couple of bigger shake-up news too, officially, that we got in the NASCAR world. I think is worth mentioning, just given the heavy hitter name involved in it. Kind of hard to ignore. It's a name that even Nick, you'll for sure recognize and everything like that. So. We'll get to that. Yeah, you mentioned the double. We're going to get to that. Like I mentioned, it's a bunch of smaller stuff. We're going to talk a little bit of Bill Walton. We're going to talk a little bit of Angel Hernandez even.
But first, what is that hat?
Well, this is the Asheville Tourist, single A of the Houston Astros. But they're one of the more famous minor league teams because of Bull Durham. They actually have I think it's the 3rd oldest professional ballpark in America, and it's the second or the first or the oldest in minor league baseball.
Where do you get these hats?
I actually went to Asheville last August as part of my kind of vacation I went on, and so that's where I got this one. So that one was pretty easy. But yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I've purchased online a minor league hat. I want to say it's been well over a calendar year. Yeah, typically now if I'm at a game, I usually get one if I'm at a place I haven't been to before, obviously like Asheville. For example, last year, Norfolk and Durham last August as well. So, yeah, don't know.
Just strictly baseball hats?
For the most-ish.
Don't you got a Miami Heat hat?
Yeah, I mean, I got a Heat hat. I've got some golf hats. A lot of NASCAR hats, mainly in the Bubba Wallace 2311 Toyota camp area. Got a couple old school. I've worn them before. It's been a while. Maybe I need to bust one out here in a couple weeks, but Gold's Pumps, Mike McLaughlin hat from back in the day, so local tie there.
Nice.
All right, before we get any further, I have to handle a little podcast business. Obviously, thank DeSanto Propane, who is with us here at the Jump. Also, Chino's Pizzeria and Restaurant. You can visit Chino's Pizzeria and Restaurant at their original Waterloo location or all-new renovated location in Geneva. Dine-in, takeout, delivery, catering, and banquets. Order online at chinos.com. Live, laugh, and eat well. It's the Italian way. And Auburn Auto Group comes to selection and service after the sale. Auburn Auto Group has been the premier destination for new and used car buyers for close to 40 years. Among the brands offered at the Route 5 location in Auburn include Chevrolet, GMC, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Honda, Toyota, and Subaru. Thanks to a wide range of makes and models, you're sure to find your new or used vehicle at Auburn Auto Group. So, we'll do the basketball part first here because I think it's really good. I wouldn't say it's going to be quick and easy to kind of handle, but look, Boston sweeps Indiana. I think it might be a little bit of a different series if Halliburton is healthy. Don't know by how much. Indy struggled to close out games very clearly against Boston, albeit Boston, I don't think is a huge favorite in the finals, no matter what happens here, as people think. They, too, did a pretty awful job down the stretch in games, all things considered. There's a lot of talk about, I guess, the Jason Tatum versus Jaylen Brown thing's kind of back on the table a little bit. Don't know how much to fully read into that, all things considered. It's weird. I mean, I feel like one of my big storylines is old man Al Horford just out here getting buckets still somehow on like 40 minutes of play, which is crazy, but I would expect that to kind of tail away here. It kind of sounds like Porzingis is going to be back here for the finals for sure, especially with Boston having well over a week to rest. We'll touch on that obviously more here in a second, but I know you said you were not going to watch the Eastern Conference Final at all. Luckily for you, it was a pretty in and out, pretty much week of basketball there on that front for you.
Well, I was going to watch Game 5, and then I heard the Pacers were out. You didn't even mention the guy that's been the biggest difference, in my opinion, is Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
Getting him in the point guard position.
Yeah.
I mean, you lose Marcus Smart, who is a big loss. But when you replace him with KP and Drew Holiday, I think you'll be all right. And clearly they've been all right. This has probably been the best Celtics season they've had in recent memory. Yeah. And now they're just 4 more wins away from winning the championship. Yeah, you're right. Halliburton, if he plays. Was that Tom Thibodeau's fault that he got hurt? Just curious.
There was in the Boston series where it really kind of took the nosedive. I would say no, but
but the Pacers are the Pacers. I mean, they had a nice run. They beat a very injured Bucks and Knicks team,
and if you're going to do it that route,
yeah, and the Heat.
They didn't play the Bucks.
What?
Oh, you're talking on the Indiana side of things.
Indiana.
First. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Cavs were out. No, they weren't. That's right, they weren't. Is anybody healthy?
I mean, the crazy part about it is outside of Porzingis, like Boston may be they are the healthiest team out of the East in that sense, obviously. I mean, they moved on, but outside of KP, I mean, they're healthy all around.
Yeah, at least everybody's got like some interesting injuries.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Minnesota, I think, is fully healthy outside of Chris Finch, the head coach.
Dallas, I guess, is besides that.
Dallas,
Lively.
Well, Dallas is probably going to be without Lively, I'm imagining, which sucks. We'll table that though for.
It's also key injuries. You're talking about Jaron Allen's a huge loss for the Cavs.
Well, correct.
Yeah, Knicks obviously.
I mean, and Mitchell was out too the final couple games.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, forgot about that.
Yeah,
and
Jimmy missed everything for the Heat. Hawkes missed the final game of that series.
They're bigger names than Derek Lively. No offense to Derek Lively, he's a great player.
Well, right, but like Lively's been a pretty big difference maker in that series so far.
Yeah, he has. I'm saying no offense to him, but just
no offense, but full offense.
Yeah. So the Pacers and the Celtics have had injury-prone paths to get to where they are, and the Celtics are just the better team, and they proved it. Pacers could have won Game 1, apparently. I did not see it, but I saw the box score, and
as long as you play the game, you have a chance to win.
Yeah. So no, I don't care for either team, so it wasn't much interest towards the series. But Boston is just the better team. They got arguably some of the most underrated players in the league with Holiday. You mentioned Jaylen Brown, very underrated player. Tatum gets all the love.
So,
but
I think this is a good spot to maybe transition a little bit after this point. Is Brown underrated? Is he really? Because I didn't fully think about this until I was listening to actually Ryan Russillo the other night, and he's got a point. At what point, like Brown and Tatum are both more or less at their mid-20s at this point, right? Tatum I think is 25 or 26, and Brown's literally just a year behind him. Like this is probably what they are. Like in what space outside of, I guess, really kind of LeBron, Steph, these guys who like really kind of changed the game, right? I mean, outside of guys like them, like none of these quote unquote stars/superstars really ever evolve after their mid-20s. Like people, like I guess maybe this is more on the Tatum side of things, but like Tatum. Like, his three-point shooting has regressed the past 2 years, and people are like, well, wait until he develops. I'm like, is he? Like, I think what you got with him is what you got. I think it's hard to underrate/overrate when that's just what they are. Like, this is why I've been trying to preach about Karl Towns for well over a year now. It's just like, this is what he is. Stop trying to put him where he's not, type thing. Just my kind of 2 cents on that.
Yeah, you're not a big cat guy, and very understandably so. I'm not a big ant guy. I mean, I had nothing against Ant's game. I just not a big fan of
What
it.
you're saying is you're against ants.
I, I will say that is my least favorite insect.
Wait, really?
All the seriousness, yes, I hate ants. If I see like an ant farm just escape from its home, it's just heebie-jeebies. I hate ants. Hate them.
Really?
I will freak out. I'm on the toilet taking a dump, and I see an ant on the floor. I'll be freaking out, grabbing all the toilet paper I can. I just hate them. So maybe that's why I don't like.
Small, innocent insect in the grand scheme of it.
Yeah, not a big fan. Especially the red ones.
Well, those are different.
So maybe that's why I'm not a big ant guy. Nah, it's probably his personality. Yeah, just not a huge fan of him. I mean, he went pretty quiet those first 3 games in the series. I just do not like these players that are in it. I can't stand Luka. You can't stand Kyrie. I'm not that big on Kyrie either. I mean, I hate rooting for these teams. I'm not rooting for them at all. That's why I choose not to watch.
Yeah, it's a tough hang for rootability. I mean, I love Luka. I think that's why, as much as it pains me, I'm kind of leaning Dallas at the moment overall here.
But you're not a big Kyrie guy.
Nah. I mean, but that's more off the court stuff. I mean, when he's on the court, kind of hard to go against him in a sense, right? But he has done some stuff on the court, or I guess at least quasi on the court that I don't love. But that's
Give Mark
kind
Cuban
of the
some
nature
credit.
of the thing.
This Dallas team always just pops up.
Well, I mean, the thing with Cuban is he's not even the majority owner of the team anymore, and he wasn't. I don't think he was there last night, so I don't know. I mean, there's a really weird, interesting conversation to be had about Jason Kidd at this point. I don't necessarily think he's a great coach. I don't think he's a bad coach. I think he deserves some credit though, because this is a pretty rough team. I mean, I think you gotta give some credit. I forget who the GM is there, but you gotta give him credit because the Dylan Gafford thing is huge right now. He's been a huge pickup at the trade deadline for him, and obviously now through the playoffs. But in terms of the cohesiveness, you gotta give a little bit of credit to Jason Kidd, I think, because I mean, I can't imagine trying to figure out what to do with that team game plan wise, because you're number 1 and number 2, depending on how you view it, right? In Luka and Kyrie, and it's a pretty big drop off to get to what I would say is PJ Washington at your 3, and even then your third best player, and then there's another drop off. I feel like, so I it's kind of wild seeing them get to the point where they did, especially given up until mid-February, man, they were playing at best, and I mean, this has been a pretty big year for the Mavs. I think, kind of puts some interesting stuff further down the line that, we shouldn't be discussing here today. I think up to question regarding what that team looks like in 2024/5 and so on and so forth. So
I think it just shows that Luka can't do it all. When he had Brunson there, they went to the Western Conference Finals. When he gets Kyrie, they start to win. And now here they are, 1 win away from the NBA Finals. I mean, it's not really Luka. It's really just any superstar in today's game. You have to have another person with you.
Well, I think it's just the way it kind of is in general, right? I don't even know if you have to put necessarily the superstar status up for people in that sense, right? You could be just a star. We've seen Boston when Brown goes out for a little bit. It falls on Tatum. And, I mean, I give him credit. He doesn't really run away from the spotlight in that sense. But, no matter what team, what player it is, right, you can – it's the hyper-focus goes to them, right? And that's where it just makes just such a big difference. And this is what I mean. I'll take the example of it, Homer here, but, that's why, this playoff series was such a big, eye-opening thing, I think, for the Heat. Where it's Bam can't be on his own. He's undersized anyway, but, you need somebody to play off of Bam. Bam can't do it solely, right? And I think that was something they kind of saw a year in a way with Jimmy. Jimmy missed pretty much a third of the year. So, what's the plan, with any of these teams, right? You need a number two, a true number two in that sense. And I don't mean maybe necessarily a guy who's very much like below that one in any situation, right? Because that's what I mean. Like Luka and Kyrie are pretty close to each other in the grand scheme of it. I think at this point Luka is the better player, but like at any given time, like Kyrie can be the one going off, or vice versa. So
it's like if you, me, and Pat played 3-on-3, and you or me went down. We can't lose those superstars, and Pat can't do it by himself without us. So
yeah,
that's a great example.
Try telling him that one. Let's transition on over here. Let's do the Angel Hernandez bit now, because I think this is where we kind of rattle off the rest of the stuff here in relatively shortest succession. So Angel Hernandez retires effective yesterday morning, Tuesday morning. It's pretty interesting.
He will be missed.
Is he, I guess, you can answer this in a second when I get done. Is he the most controversial umpire of all time? I don't know. I think there's one very noticeably worse umpire, I think, in the grand scheme of it. He just does, I think, a little bit better job of not opening up his mouth. So I think he kind of slides under the radar a little bit better than that, even though he won't anymore. It's pretty interesting because I've always said, like, you're better off never knowing who these guys' names are in the grand scheme of it, right? It's a little bit different in every sport in a way, right? Because no matter what now, you always hear the umpire, referee, officials' names, no matter what in the TV broadcast and stuff like that. So I think part of that has amplified the issue a little bit more, among other things. But we knew who Angel Hernandez was pretty much from the jump when he became a full-time Major League umpire in the mid-'90s. We were more or less babies when he got the gig, right? But I remember one of the first clips I saw of Angel Hernandez where I recognized that's Angel Hernandez was, and I saw it funnily enough last night, Andre Dawson at the end of his career is playing for the Marlins, and Andre Dawson, by all accounts, great guy, relatively quiet in terms of on the field stuff, not one to really argue or anything like that. Gets a strikeout, strikes out looking. Angel Hernandez calls it a strike when it's a ball, pretty clearly. You could tell in the 90s without the strike box, right? Mm-hmm. And Andre, you could tell this kind of look was like, kind of more or less asked, where was it? Type thing, right? And Angel rings him up, and like Andre is just like, what in the hell? Like from the jump, you knew Angel Hernandez was going to be an issue. And look, I get it; it's tough and like whatever. But again, I go back to this like not having the ego, not doing whatever. We probably don't know that guy's name, and yet here we are, 30 some odd years later, finally retires and goes out the door, and unceremoniously. Gets to live in infamy as probably, like I said, if he's not the most controversial, he's one of the most controversial umpires of all time.
Yeah, obviously, it's when you see a mid-season retirement like that on the spot, no warning. And it's more of a...
And it isn't a first, by the way, but...
That's more of a pushed out kind of deal. I mean, you got to assume.
Yeah.
But anyway, obviously, umpires... This is not an Angel Hernandez problem we have in the Major League Baseball.
Correct.
This is an umpire problem.
Yeah.
There is, yes, Angel Hernandez, who's actually was one of the more nicer umpires, apparently. He just was really bad at his job, right. And he wanted bigger games, and his performance didn't show that he deserved those bigger games. But all around, I mean, this isn't just Angel Hernandez's problem. This is an umpire problem we have. There are so many. You go watch any game today. Go watch a game. You just find some terrible umpire. He's either way out of shape. I mean, these umpires got to be in better shape.
Some of them.
They got to be in better shape. They just got to be. I just watched the Pirates game. They got two pretty fat umpires doing these games, and it's just.
You got Wendelstedt? I'm going to have to look it up.
I mean, you can't. You can't be doing balls and strikes because, one, you got to bend down to see those low pitches. They're just guessing on them, some of them. And yeah, when you make a controversial call, you're going to be known for it. I still know who Jerry Means is to this day.
Jerry Meals.
Means.
It's not Means.
Means?
It's Meals.
Jerry Meals.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. Means. I'm thinking of the pitcher.
You are.
Yeah, Jerry Meals. Well, it's been so long. 2011, when the Pirates lost in 19 innings, and they laid the tag against the Atlanta Braves that one game, and their whole season fell apart. Yeah, Jerry Meals, the home plate umpire. Yes, and I still know of him till this day. And
Yeah, not to interrupt, but yeah, I looked it up really quick here on the Game Day app. Yeah, you got Doug Eddings and Bill Miller in that doubleheader today.
yeah, good. Great. What about Jim Joyce? And the problem about Jim Joyce with the umpire,
It was one call for him.
he was actually a really good
Yeah.
umpire, but he's just going to be known for the Armando Galarraga near perfect game.
Yeah.
Should have been a perfect game. It's like Billy Buckner. That guy was actually a really good player.
Oh yeah, Billy Buckner's like borderline Hall of Famer. Like,
But he's noted for the ball going through his legs.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit different with every ump, right? I mean, the one that sticks out to me, and he's actually rated as one of the better umpires. I know people have had interesting commentary in the past year about him, but like John Tumpane, like for example, like probably known for the right reasons, if I'm being honest, in terms of umpiring. But yeah,
well, we got rid of Joe West. Angel Hernandez is gone. I think CB Buckner's next.
So I was about to ask who is now at the mantle, because I would say CB's got to be up there number one.
Yeah,
right?
without a doubt.
The interesting one to me is, and I feel like I'm definitely the minority on this. I've never thought Laz Diaz was necessarily bad. He's just one of the guys where it's like he has such a short fuse that like you can't even question something in that sense.
That's the biggest problem with umpires. A lot of them have egos.
Yeah.
Yes, and they think they run the sport. They run the game, and you're there to guide the game. Have ground rules.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty interesting. Did you see Aaron Boone's comments about Angel Hernandez?
No.
He goes like, I kind of feel, more or less was like, I feel bad for him because like people view him as the worst, and I think he was the face of bad umpiring, but he certainly wasn't the worst.
Yeah.
Like, and like I kind of agree with, like, that's what I mean. Like, I kind of agree with him in a sense. Like, I think it was just the fact that Angel was very vocal about various things, and maybe to a justifiable extent. So, like, I don't doubt maybe necessarily how he felt, right, about the lawsuit for the racial discrimination. I don't want to make it sound like it was completely baseless. I'm sure in that moment he felt like, you look around and it was just like all white guys. I understand it, but like the numbers back up the fact you weren't great.
No. And I forgot what I was gonna say, but it's just he's a bad umpire. But that's what I was gonna say. How how hard it is to be an umpire?
Yeah.
It's not easy.
No.
I mean, let's go out there and call balls and strikes. It's not easy.
No.
But he just wasn't good compared to what, in quotes, is the best.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be at that job. But yeah, it's not an easy job, and I do feel bad for him that he's going to be remembered as this horrible umpire.
Yeah.
But he had plenty of chances to right his ship and have a better career, but man, he just kept making mistakes. In his last few years, he's been just
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty
every game, it felt like.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to go back to like what you brought up about Jim Joyce. I mean, that was a guy who was consistently rated at the top of consistency, best zones, and best umpire to just kind of have on a game, because you knew you could at least talk to him and stuff like that.
That started the talk of replay, though.
Right. Yeah, unfortunately. Well, right. I mean, but like we said, I mean, it's unfortunate he's going to get remembered for one call when like he is arguably one of, if not the best umpire of our generation anyway. It's pretty interesting. Paul Emmel, another umpire, retired today, but I know a lot of people are just like, they're weeding him out. I'm like, well, Paul, you can look back on this. It's available. He's only worked part-time the past couple of years. He worked 30 games last year, and it didn't work any this year. So it's like, yeah, I think they're trying, I don't want to say they're like weeding him out or forcing it upon, but I think they're trying to get like a couple of the more senior umpires kind of moving along a little bit at this point. Like I said, Angel's been around since the mid-90s. He was part of the umpires boycott, more or less, at the turn of the millennium when they combined the NL and AL exclusive umpires to become one uniform crew. Yeah. So I mean, he's been around a while. So
Was he a crew chief?
I don't know if he ever got to crew chief status. I think he did for a couple of years. He was on, I mean, it's funny you mentioned Joe West. He was on Joe West's crew for years. I remember specifically, he was actually the umpire to defuse a very notorious incident between Mark Burley and Joe West, involving Joe West called Mark Burley for like 3 balks in a row. And then finally Burley just lost it, right? And Angel was the one who had to calm Burley down, more or less. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting. I think Angel did get to crew chief status for a couple of years, and then I don't know how that fully works once you get it, how you go about losing it, because like I know Phil Cuzzy was a crew chief for a little bit, and now he's not, and then I think he's back to being a crew chief this year, so I don't know. I wonder if it's kind of cyclical in a way. I don't know.
Maybe Angel Hernandez will now be the TV rules guy.
Yeah, he would fit in that mold for some of those guys. All right, let's get moving on here a little bit. Let's save Bill Walton, I think, for last year. I think that's proper. Let's do the NASCAR stuff here quickly. Quickly-ish. Yeah, you mentioned it at the top here a little bit. Kyle Larson in the double didn't go according to plan.
No.
I guess it would be a failed attempt, not by his choice, but by Mother Nature's doing at the double.
Now, did someone race in his NASCAR car?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So I'm going to circle back to that. I just want to try and give the best timeline I can here to maybe fully understand if people don't know. So he's in Indianapolis, right? That's the first race out of the double between the Indy 500 and Coke 600. Weather in Indianapolis delays the start of the race. The race was supposed to start in the 12 o'clock noon hour. Didn't happen because of the weather. They get going at, I think green flag technically fell at like 4:46 in the afternoon. But
wow. That was a long delay.
You're right. But Indy knew about the weather. They were Indy. I have to give the folks at IndyCar for the day really good credit about being communicative, being open about what the situation was. We don't get that a ton in NASCAR, and we'll get to that in this timeline portion of things. So they knew pretty early on. I think they came out about 10 o'clock or so. I remember I was at basketball and I saw the race was going to be in delay. So they knew pretty squared away. We aren't going right away. It'll be sometime today, but we won't be getting going right away. A lot of rumor mill stuff, even the whole week, because the weather was going to be in question. Gets announced Larson's going to do the 500 to its full length and then get to the Coke 600. So with that, Xfinity Series regular, Justin Allgaier, who runs for Junior Motorsports at Xfinity Series, he was going to start the 5 and drive the 5 until Larson gets there. The issue with that, and we'll touch on this again here quickly in a second, Kyle Larson doesn't get the points for the race, doesn't get credited with anything for the race. It will be credited to Justin Allgaier. Larson finishes the 500. It's about 7:30-ish at this point, give or take. I think a little bit beyond that. Coke 600's already been going for an hour and a half.
So he knew when the delay happened.
Correct.
It was over.
Yeah. So, but he was still going to attempt to at least run both races to some degree. So we get to halfway in the 600. They're following the flight thing, but weather's closing in on Charlotte at that point. And Larson lands right as the race ends up not lands. He gets to the track and gets to pit road as NASCAR is throwing the yellow for rain on the track at about lap, I think it was 237, 236, something in there. As people, and we all jokingly call it's the Coke 337 and a half what ended up happening. So actually, Justin Allgaier did a really good job. First time ever driving in the current generation of car. Started last, ended up getting up to 13th. Did a really great job. He ended up going down a lap at one point in the first stage even. So
when you get a sub like that, you go back to the bottom?
Correct. So driver change, you have to follow the back of the pack. So yeah, and then the rains fall. Over 2 hour delay for NASCAR. All indications were they're going to try and give it a go, and then all of a sudden they called the race. So Kyle Larson didn't even turn a single lap in the 600. So no double. I know he was very disappointed. It sucks. And now we have a lot of questions coming on. I haven't seen an update on it. NASCAR has not yet granted him a waiver yet for the playoffs. In order to qualify for the playoffs, you have to attempt every race.
Oh, really?
Yep, still nothing on that front. Yeah, but also, to the last of my knowledge, when I last saw, they haven't filed for a waiver yet either. So I don't know what's fully going on here. It'll be interesting to kind of see. We're at Wednesday. It's been a big NASCAR news week, as I kind of mentioned at the top of the podcast. So it's kind of what happened.
They had that rule for the NBA.
Huh?
Play every game to be qualified for the playoffs.
Well, they kind of have that with the awards anyway, but yeah.
So what was the big name you were telling me, NASCAR?
Well, do you have any questions regarding the double at that point, or?
Yeah, what's a double? Yeah, no, I got it.
Yeah.
I got it. Justin Allgaier ran his car.
Yeah.
And he showed up late.
Yeah.
And they didn't even finish the race.
Correct.
They called it.
Yeah.
Shortened race.
Yeah. So, the big name, Stewart-Haas Racing, Tony Stewart and Gene Haas's team. This is their final year.
Really?
Yep, announced yesterday officially that they're shutting down the team. Been a hot rumor for pretty much a month now that this was going to happen, but nobody knew exactly what the deal was. But they're shutting it all down, selling off all 4 of the Cup charters. In fact, coming into the podcast just now, news broke that although it's not officially one of their charters, it sounds like one of them has already been sold off to Front Row Motorsports, so they're going to 3-car team next year. Be really interesting. It sucks. I remember when this team was just Haas Racing. They ran the number 0 because they were sponsored by Net Zero back in the day. They had Jack Sprague driving a Pontiac Grand Prix in its final year of existence in motorsport, and kind of seeing how the team evolved over the year from Sprague to Ward Burton to Mike Bliss, and then to a 2-car team with Jeff Green and Johnny Sauter to Jeremy Mayfield, Tony Raines, Ken Schrader drove the car. Johnny Benson, I think, even also drove it at some point. Now? So, and then, Tony Stewart buys in to get it, right? And, now it's Josh Berry, Noah Gregson, Chase Briscoe, and Ryan Preece. And it'll be interesting to kind of see how everything shakes out there. I'm inclined to believe Ford's going to do everything in their power to keep Briscoe in the Ford camp, probably in the Wood Brothers car is my guess. I would guess that we'll see Barry with Front Row Motorsports next year. Gregson, a couple different options because he has a personal sponsorship deal with Bass Pro Shop. I imagine we'll see him. He'll be somewhere. He's not going to be without a ride. Priest is the odd man out. His performance just hasn't matched the other guys even. So I feel bad. He's a Northeast guy. He's a modified guy. I kind of root for him a little bit on the side, but the performance just isn't there. I think he's a bit the odd man out. Their Xfinity program, they're done too. It'll be interesting. I think Cole Custer is going to move up to the Cup level again with Front Row. Riley Herbst, he's got sponsorship money. He's good enough. He'll find a seat somewhere, whether it's Xfinity or Cup. I think he's at the time where if you're not going to go Cup racing, you probably aren't going to at all. So, it's crazy at the timeline. This was a 2-time Cup champion team, 1-time Xfinity champion team, numerous wins, you name it, they've done it. The drivers who have driven for them are huge, hard-hitting names throughout the years. From Tony Stewart, Ryan Newman, obviously Kevin Harvick, Kurt Busch, to even present day with like Briscoe, for example. Pretty crazy.
Let me see the standings. What's the standings look like right now in NASCAR?
Well, it's pretty interesting because Kyle Larson, this is the interesting part about the Larson thing, right, is he was the point leader going into the Coke 600, and now he's 3rd. And
they could kick him out of the playoffs.
Yeah. It'll be interesting.
Where's my NASCAR?
You're struggling.
Service is struggling.
Yeah, that'll happen.
But yeah, that's kind of big news.
Yeah,
a team like that.
Definitely. We're talking hundreds of employees, right? A lot of, like I mentioned. There's some.
It's like the New York Knicks just shutting shop.
Kinda, yeah. And
these players are just got to go somewhere else.
Right. Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
It's a team that's been around a while.
Mm-hmm.
They said, we're not playing basketball anymore. Jalen Brunson, go find another home.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, this whole deal. It sounds like Gene Haas was actually the one really pulling the plug on this, and he's focused on his F1 team, which whatever. I guess Tony Stewart was the one who did the meeting yesterday with the folks at SHR, and I understand why he's upset, but like at the same token, like you were also pretty absent the past couple of years, dude. Like this probably was going to happen, whether or not you felt bad or not about it. So.
We got Denny Hamlin out in front.
Yep.
Your boy Bubba is in 13th.
Mm-hmm. Got a big. It was a big weekend for him.
Larson's in 3rd. Truex is 2nd.
Yep.
Kobayashi, the hot dog eater's last.
Really off of my guy Kamui.
But yeah, getting excited.
Yeah.
Got some interesting times coming up.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much de facto halfway home now to the playoff, and it'll be pretty interesting.
What's this week's race?
They're at Gateway in St. Louis.
Do they ever take a break? They don't do it. The Cup Series.
Well, they got a break. They have an extended break this year because of the Olympics, but yeah.
NASCAR's in the Olympics or just coverage?
Well, it's because NBC has it, and NBC has the contract.
The Chicago Street Race coming up next month.
Yep, it's 4th of July weekend.
Nashville. Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yep, so it'll be pretty good stuff to wrap up the year. All right, Nick, before we get out of here, we would be remiss if we did not talk about the legend, Bill Walton, passing away on Memorial Day. Caught me off guard.
Did you know he had cancer?
I didn't know he had cancer, but I remember hearing that, like, after his final game they called mid-February that he wasn't going to do any games the rest of the year because of health issues, which I get. I mean, this was a dude who, I mean, if you don't know the story of Bill Walton, you need to. I mean, this is a guy who's been living with and has lived in pain for a while just because of continuous health problems from literally when he was a kid. So I suppose maybe hearing that he had cancer caught me off guard, but the fact that we knew he was in with health issues, I think it was, you just didn't know. And, this is a guy who just, I mean, above all, authentic, one-of-one type guy. I mean, one of the most accomplished basketball players of all time, period, pro or college level, combined, doesn't matter, who, I mean, for our generation, we pretty much only know him, right, as this media personality who transcends, right, everything else because of the idiosyncrasies and just stuff like that. And, dude, have you ever been inside a volcano? Type stuff. And, about
one of your favorites.
Well, I mean, he was. I mean, he's what makes broadcasting fun, right? I mean, you need to have a little bit of that loose sidewall, so know what you're talking about. I mean, this was a guy who was high basketball IQ. I think people don't fully know and appreciate his basketball IQ is absurd. I mean, we talk about Nikola Jokic now, but like the roots of Jokic, the player, are Bill Walton. Mm-hmm. Arguably the best passing big of all time. Kind of a hybrid type player anyway in that sense. Could do a little bit of shooting if you needed him to. But the way the big guy plays basketball now, Bill Walton started it, right? He is the one. When we talk about Jokic, whatever, Jokic is Bill Walton probably like 5.0 at this point in that sense. Not Walton was the original Jokic. No. Jokic is this new version of a Bill Walton. That's the way it should be. So his impact is just undeniable. I mean, he's one of the 50 greatest of all time, one of the 75 greatest of all time. I just a really cool, interesting dude. I mean, there's no other way around it, and it sucks. A little bit of color, I feel like, has gone away from the world because we lost this awesome guy.
Yeah, I did not know he had cancer, and definitely caught me off guard. I was just getting out of work, went to Finger Lakes Farm Gaming Racetrack the other day, and I saw it on the news on ESPN. Did not see that coming. You said interesting. He is an interesting man. He was one of a kind, I think Adam Silver.
One of one, yeah.
There is no other person like him. Will I try eating a cupcake with a fire still lit on it?
A lit candle, yeah.
I don't know if I'll try that out, but this world is crazy, man.
Happy birthday.
This world's crazy, man. They just had the other day was the final telecast on the Pac-12.
Pac-12, yeah, and I know Rocky, I forget his last name, but he's been the play-by-play voice of the Pac-12 network now for a couple of years and had worked pretty close with Walton.
And
and even gave him a shout-out on it. It was a baseball game, and he gave a shout-out to Bill Walton, what ended up being the final live broadcast of the Pac-12
If you don't know Bill Walton, big Pac-12
Conference of Champions
advocator, and it's crazy. The Pac-12 goes, so does Bill Walton. And
yeah, there's a weird poeticness to it, albeit morbid. It still is beautiful in a sense. He was able to see out the Pac-12.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
his son Luke.
It's crazy. I mean, all 4 of his kids played basketball to some degree. I know there's a few of them still. Obviously, Luke still coaches, but I know there was another son that coached. He played at like LSU. I mean, all the kids, his wife Lori, the Grateful Dead, the Deadheads everywhere.
I wrote a story not that long ago. This Waterloo guy named John Schweitz.
Oh yeah, he played with him.
Played
in
with
Boston.
Bill Walton in Boston. Yeah, so. So that just shows he goes way back, and he's been around. And
yeah, I mean, I felt there's a couple people. I mean, it's so weird because like we probably use this term very loosely, but like I felt terrible. You could tell in Game 4, Rick Carlisle, the head coach of the Pacers, who played also on those mid-'80s Celtics teams, you could tell he just. I don't know if he necessarily didn't want to be there, but you could tell he was struggling with the news. I mean, it's come out now like after the statement like Kareem is pretty upset by this. There's a lot of like Larry Bird's upset by this. There's a lot of guys who are upset by it. I mean, I don't know if you listened to it, but like Jay Billis he was struggling to get through his interview on ESPN during it. I mean, the guy who was doing a really good job of holding it up, I can't imagine behind the scenes, is Dave Pasch.
Yeah.
I mean, Pasch is doing a really good job of doing some of these interviews and stuff, but I mean, behind the scenes, he's got to be struggling bad. I mean, this was a guy who spent probably the most time with Walton one-on-one outside of his own family the past decade plus,
He's a legend.
Yeah.
And he like you said, though, he comes off as this idiot on the television screen, but he actually is a genius when it comes to the game of basketball. Yeah. And he knows a lot about it, and he was old school.
Yeah.
And, yeah, he definitely knew what the hell he was talking about, and he's one of the greatest players to ever play, and he will be missed.
Yeah. So thank you, Bill Walton. Keep shining.
That's
wherever
your favorite.
You maybe are. Yeah. So, all right, let's get out of here on that note, unfortunately. Nick, before I toss it to you, I have one shout-out I got to do. It's my parents' 32nd wedding anniversary today, Wednesday,
nice.
May 29th. So shout out to them. It's also my grandfather's 105th birthday, I believe. So RIP there as well, obviously. I never met him, but his 105th birthday, my parents' 32nd wedding anniversary. So I had to give my own shout-outs today before I toss it to you for your shout-out.
Thank you. I respect that. Just want a quick note, little omission here. I do not believe this is Rafa Nadal's final match at the French Open, if you feared, on Memorial Day.
Oh, you're inferring something, I see.
Rafa lost to Alexander Zverev and in the first round. Tough first-round matchup. Like, come on.
Some of the first-round matchups are wild this year in the French.
Yeah. My boy, you're starting to learn him. I talked to him. One of my favorite players right now, J.J. Wolf, was a lucky loser and got to face Alcaraz in the first round. Did not go well for J.J. Americans don't seem to play well on the clay. And Andy Murray lost to Stan Wawrinka in the first round. And people are saying, is this the end of Murray and Nadal? It might be the end of Murray. Nadal's going to play one more French. He's going to get ready. He's going to go out as a winner on the French Open. But my shout-out today, a couple birthdays tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Shout-out my cousins, Joey and Kyle.
Hey.
Joey Crisani, Steve's older brother. And shout out Kyle Murphy, who's expecting to have his first child here soon.
Right,
so
congratulations.
Shout out to Kyle and Joey.
Wasn't it Jack's birthday too?
It was what's today? 28th? Yeah, it was yesterday.
Yeah, how about it?
Yeah. Shout out him last week. So.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm. So he's good. He's got enough. He's got enough shout outs.
He's got enough, huh? All right.
Yep, that's it for me.
All right. Well, that's enough for me too. Then, so we will talk with everybody again next week. Enjoy the weekend, everybody. It's supposed to be another beautiful couple days here in the Finger Lakes. So
not Canal Fest.
It's not Canal Fest this weekend.
Next
That's next weekend. We'll talk on that next week. So enjoy, everybody. We'll talk next time.